So this is one of the ugliest I've seen in a long time. Fair. And it's already, yeah, thought so. So I'm putting together the ignition barrel, the ignition lock. Obviously this is how it comes when you buy it. Here's the new sleeve that goes over the top. Has the switch already screwed in, brand new switch in it. And you see this right here, you can depress that if the key is in the right position. Right, so like right there, the key, when these two lines are lined up, you can push that down. When you push that down, get this in the right position, there's a groove on the back side, right there, and the groove on the top. So what you do is align them, push it in, and done. Now that cylinder is locked in place. Feels good. Wonderful. And then this simply screws over the whole thing. Somehow. Well, there's a groove inside here, and it's got to align with this. I don't know. I'll figure that out here momentarily. Okay, so this is probably an hour later. That's how long it took of me fiddling with this, but I finally got it to where she's working beautiful. So the trick, and I'm going to do my best to explain this, but this little piece right here is the link that links the two keys together. I just unwound it from this one and the second key. I got this from, I think, Auto House AZ, the cylinder itself. This came from them as well. Different part numbers, different products, obviously, but they do work together pretty good now that I kind of figured it out. If I did it again, it would still probably take me another 45 minutes to do this again. However, because I didn't take it apart the first time, it was drilled out and just destroyed. So obviously this is the lock down here. You turn this to position 1, which my position 1 is off center. You see the little pinhole in there. And I take this piece, you put it in here and push it in, and it should unlock this. It's not right now. I don't know what happened. Push in, and there it goes, and now it's twisting off. See? It's just a matter of fiddling with it enough. You got to keep the pressure in this to make it work. And putting it back together is just opposite direction. Then you pull the pin out, counter turn this about half a turn, and it'll lock in position. And then you can take the key out and remove it. What a pain in the ass that this thing is. However, now that this is working, I can go put this in the car and actually put power to my starter motor a much easier way. But I was dying to get this, finally got this. Wow. So it's in, but man, just a reminder, this was all done by somebody else. Don't know who, but I would love to sit alone with them for 5 minutes. But the lock assembly is back in the car. I have to push the pinch bolt still there's a bolt down in here, and I think I still have to slide that further in actually. So anyway, it's in the right general location. I'll verify that I have it locked in. There's a little tab on the end of the cylinder that should pop up on the inside of the steering column, right up here on the top, next to this little clamp that I'm wiggling right now. Down in there. So, looks like that still has to go in yet. It's not all the way in place. That silver button has to pop out over about 1.5 inches to the left yet. So we still have quite a bit of distance to cover to get that thing to slide in properly. Right now, it's butted up against the clamp. So I'll get it in position number 1, and then I can depress that, and then the thing should slide all the way into the proper location. So I think we get into the point where I'm taking apart, I'm gonna take the intake off of it. Clearly it has to come off anyway. There's just too much rotten, dry rotted hoses, and plungers are stuck. Everything else is the plunger is stuck. So everything about this is just gonna fail. So I'm gonna take warm-up regulator off separately. I'll take off the cold start injector separately. My IAC valve, which lays right here normally, is already out. Then I'm just gonna start taking the lines off around so I can get good access to the steel lines for all of the injectors. Then we'll take off everything we can above the injectors. Then I'm gonna take off the rubber air lines that run right behind the injectors. There's 2 lines on either side, 1 line on either side of that. So, yep, all of this is coming off. Here we go. Before I do all that, I want to get the routing down for nearly everything. That airline goes nowhere. This guy back here, don't know where he's going. Oh, that's a nice ugly bundle. Ground wire goes right there. Okay, IC, temperature sensor on the same wire. That loops up, comes out of this big harness here, which this wire goes all the way back, over, and then under. All these air lines. Good Lord, that's a mess. Okay. Okay. That one's going nowhere. That one goes underneath. And goes, okay, right here. So this one goes to the warm-up regulator and then cuts across into this Y, and then goes into this Y. That's just, and then this one comes back into the warm-up regulator too. So we got 2 lines to the warm-up regulator. All right, makes 0 sense. This sensor will pop right off, should anyway. Okay, and we'll label all the steel lines when we get to those. Air pump to that harness down here. Okay. Anything special? Nothing special on this side, but we do have the big line back there to the vacuum pump. And I'm sure there'll be a water connection back there too. Yep, all the way back there will be the water connection coming from the heater. Okay. I think that's it. Okay. Before we go too far, this line didn't go anywhere, just into this general region, and it comes off the warm-up regulator, or the warm-up regulator. By the way, this gas smells so bad. I got a little bit coming out of the cold start injector. Oh, oy vey. I took this off from here on the front side of the warm-up regulator, and this one was just a vertical line going to one of those thermocouplers down here, and I think the other one was empty. So, yay, we'll see how that goes. What else? Brown wire was down here, grounded. This was there next to it. Pretty easy so far. I think I'm just going to take this whole harness off here and peel it back and lay it out of the way. You can see the routing as to what that looked like. Okay. Anyway, that's a little more close-up detail. Back to whatever that time warp is. I forget. It's late. One more thing I want to show. Right there. So under here, we've got this black line, which comes out and goes down here to the front towards the charcoal canister. Red and white is coming out from underneath there, as is this plain black one, which looks like is this wiring. This guy right here. Make sure, yeah, that's wiring. It's not even a hose. So I'm curious to see what that wiring underneath the manifold is for. So, there we go. Easy peasy. Okay, so that was entertaining, and it's almost midnight. Well, it's 12:15. So I would like to get up in 6 or 7 hours. I'm gonna call it for tonight. I think this has been enough. I was able to peel back most of that harness all the way over. This sensor was sticking pretty violently, so I did manage to get it free without breaking the connector. What else? A little clip is off the end of the throttle. I disconnected a couple of the lines in the back here. This is a good time to take this off. This is the return line coming from the warm-up regulator, going back to the rear of the distributor. So that's done. Then this wire that came out from under here went down towards on the other side of the alternator, and of course brittle and broke, but that laid down through here on the other side, through that harness like that, and connected to a plug here at the alternator. So we'll just peel that back and keep her there. Right now I've got really good access to all of the injectors, all of the buckets. I still think the easiest thing to do is to take off the intake by itself and bring the whole thing out as one assembly. And I can disassemble the distributor on the bench from the intake. That seems to be the best way to do this. Everything should be disconnected minus the wet line for the coolant on the rear. The throttle linkage is in strictly by friction right now. As soon as we lift the intake, that'll basically fall out and I'll probably lose that little ball. There's a line here going into the firewall. And of course the little short 3-inch section of hose going to the thermostat, which I think I'll just take that apart as well and get a new thermostat. That housing needs to be cleaned up. So, still a lot of work to do. I don't know if the injectors are even going to work, so I will probably put in my 450 SL injectors in this and see how that plays out. But all this is going to get a thorough cleaning, a good rub down. I think mice have been pissing on this thing for about 5 or 10 years. Everything is kind of rusty at certain areas only. The distributor looks relatively new, go figure. But I'll take this off tomorrow and see if the plunger is stuck in here, if I've got something going on in the housing here by itself. However, again, everything will come off in one big fell swoop. Yeah, so that's it. I'll get back to this hopefully tomorrow, because I'm going to forget how all of this came apart. Okay, here it is. And just as I suspected, the plunger here is stuck. And it looks like somebody's been in here because that is bent. So we'll open this thing up a little bit and try to get this plunger loosened up. And I'll bring you in here and get you a better look on the inside. All it is 3 regular screwdriver threads that hold the whole thing in. Those 3 right there, right? So that's it. Comes off really easy. See, 1, 2, 3. So once that comes off, there is a seal around here, so you got to be gentle when you're taking it off if you do plan on reusing that seal. However, looking in here, and that's what's in there. Now, this arm is what's pressed upon by the throttle plate. So now this opens no problem. So that immediately tells me that the plunger in the distributor itself is stuck. I'm hoping it'll still flow fuel because I don't want to take that apart. However, if I have to, I have to. But right now, I think I'm going to go poke at that plunger just a little bit, see if I can get it to move at all, and then we'll start disassembling the rest of this to get the intake completely out of here so I can separate the upper and lower plenums and put in the new boots. So here we go. Well, the good news is it does go in when these vice grips slip off. It'll suck it down like a ½ inch, and now I'm able to get it back up again. So it is moving. So that is progress, right? And it's just a slow and tedious path. Yep, got it up another 1/8 of an inch or so. I did take the collar and the sleeve off. Just a little movement. Boy. Well, it's coming out ever so slowly. Yeah, it's moving. Well, maybe. I can't tell anymore. Come on. I'm trying to be very, very careful with everything in here. I think it's time for a piece of wood to help pry, get a little more leverage. Leverage is your friend, right? So let's see. Oh, come on, yep. Ah, there it is. Ha ha. Listen, whatever you do, don't drop this or score this side at all. If you do, the whole assembly is junk. And I do have a spring inside there as well. And I don't think it wants to come out. That is a win for sure. All right, that was very satisfying. Okay, looks like I got the gum out because this thing, she goes in and out really nice and effortlessly. Almost falls into place now. So that is perfect. And all I did, pulled it out. I took a gray Scotch-Brite. See, I did remember. And very gently with some brake cleaner, cleaned the outside of the plunger itself, wiped it off, then sprayed the inside. Went in with this a couple of times, did that 3 or 4 times with brake cleaner, wiping out the goop from the inside. Then gave it a very light spritzing of WD. And right there, I mean, that is just money. Perfect. I'm happy. The nut is back down, and I'm just now about ready to bend her back over and make it a legit completion. So anyway, this part will be done. I'm going to take apart, I forgot which one's got the filter. One of them's got a filter on it. So I'm going to clean the filter off on that. I'll take the filter off on this one. I think there's a filter in here. I don't know. I don't remember. But since I'm not opening up the guts, I won't know 100% if it's going to work again. I do need to get an O-ring for this. And then once all of those tasks are complete, the distributor is tentatively done, barring it having fuel pressure and verifying it actually delivers fuel to where we need it. Okay, so back on this, right? I'm gonna try to, don't hold your breath, but I'm gonna try to just take off the upper half of the plenum. That way I have more access and easy reach to the things I need for the actual intake. So stick around for that. So it looks like this is set up a little bit different than my 450 is, and it actually is coming apart easier than my 450 did. All good things. There it is. That wasn't very complicated, honestly. Here we go. Okay. So this line likes leaking gas. That wasn't very complicated, honestly. So there's the actual throttle body. Dirty, of course. Finally got good access to this hose, so I'm glad I have a replacement for it, because this feels like a brick as well. This wasn't connected to anything. That was just hanging out down there. That's another vent, but doesn't look too terrible, honestly. I think the next step is to start taking apart some of the linkages back here. So we'll get a light on those for orientation purposes. 3 or 4 13s back there, it looks like. And I'll take the bracket off here to release the tension off the throttle. And then eventually we'll get to taking some of the antifreeze out of this thing. Then we'll loosen up the 15 bolts that go around the intake. I'll do another cleaning of this thing, but more like a vacuuming, I would say. So, all in all, it's not as terrible as I thought it would be. Yay for me. So this is one of the ugliest I've seen in a long time. Probably still works. Okay, let's hope it still works. But we'll see. Ooh, still leaking nasty ass. That fuel smells so bad. Oh, boy, that stuff is old. But let's see if we can turn back the hands of time on this bad boy. Okay, so just to get a good picture of what is where. Yep. Orientation of all the linkages again. I just took off the red one off of that little nub there. Just took that nut out and stopped myself so I could take this short little video, because normally I would just rip through and call it good and hope for the best later. So anyway, that's what all this stuff looks like now. And we'll get a quick overview for that stuff there as well. Okay, short one, long one. Yeah? Yeah? You got it? Video library. That bolt, it's like 1 inch long. Goes right there, just like its brother right there, for all the linkages, and the 2 line up underneath that one, and 1 bolt goes through them. Now I'm going to take this part off, and we'll see how many pieces want to fly out of that. And there's the orientation for this bad boy. So this will come off really easy. See? And the spring comes off. And this just falls off with another nub on that side. And a washer. And I think that's enough to clean this and clean that. So I know I'm being very methodical with everything that I'm doing. I'm moving very slow because I'm also cleaning as I'm going. So I think the next thing we'll do is take a little antifreeze out of this thing and then get the hoses off on the rear, those two, and this one here on the front. And I'll probably take off the thermostat and put a new thermostat in here too, because I just can't stand looking at that. I have to clean that up, polish it up. And it'll give me a chance to clean off both of those sensors that are sticking in it, make sure the inside of those are perfectly fine. So there it is. I'm gonna leave it like this, and I don't know when I'll be able to get back to it, but it'll be quick for you. So it's a new morning, so I drained probably a quarter of the antifreeze out. The drain is on the left front corner, and it's a 19 millimeter, by the way. And now I just cracked all the bolts, got them all loose, and I am going to use this as a template to not lose them. There we go. Pretty straight forward. Anyway, you get the idea. I got the coolant lines tucked away from the back here. I got the coolant line off back there. There's nothing connecting on that side. There's nothing connecting on the front side. This wire, which was so tight running behind, by the way, not air pump. This is the cruise control. This wire is actually the throttle position sensor wire. So anyway, everything is broken free all the way around. I had a little bit of a hollow sound to it, so I know it's freed up a little bit. That should pop off here momentarily. I'm gonna continue taking these off, and then we'll resume action. And there we have it. The one thing I will caution is make sure you go back and get all of the washers out. Some of these had them, some of these didn't, it looked like, so I have to go see if they're just embedded into the aluminum or buried in some crud or whatever, but I'm gonna do that first real quick and we'll go from there. So the easiest way to do that is with a magneta. There's one. Okay, so you were on 1, 2, 3, 4 back. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to do that for the rest of these. Found 2 more, but I think I got 1 more that's still buried in some crud or rust or whatever you want to call it right here. And that should be about it. Maybe 1 buried in this one back here as well. So anyway, there she is. What is holding me back? Oh, okay, we got another line on the back. Ah, right there, from the transmission. I forgot about that one. Here, I'll show you. This one's a little sneaky. I remember it now. I sure couldn't tell you about it before, obviously. Where are you at? Oh yeah, right there. That one. And that line runs down to the trans. Yeah, that thin one, middle of the screen. this thing will pop right out. Okay, fresh batteries in my light. Because like age, I didn't even notice it was getting to me. And my light was going dim. The flashlight, not my actual age. There, good enough. So now, she should come out with no more fanfare. And it's already, yeah, thought so. I'm sure there were no air leaks, right? Yeah, all of those, I'm sure we're fine. There's the spring. These things are hard as a rock. Wow. Let me get this out of the way. And now I'll get my precious out. These, look at that. They're barely on there. These things are like a rock. These are rubber. Well, that one's a little soft, but they're just so expanded. They're just falling off. You can't tell me there's no air leaks going on in there. So yeah, that's gonna need a good cleaning for sure. Don't forget your spring for the throttle return. Anyway, that's what it looks like. Yeah. I'll get you in here and go have a look at the actual valley, which is going to need some serious attention, honestly. Do I have a screwdriver? Yes. Let's see how deep some of this stuff is. Not terrible. Oh, something's in. Oh, okay. Yeah, my 450 was way worse. This stuff, it's not rusty at all. It's just dust, really, road grime. So, looking into some of these ports, that looks mostly plugged up. That's all carbon buildup there. Get a flashlight in this hole. What did I do with my other flashlight? I just had it. Aha. That looks really good, actually. They look really good. Yeah, they all look about the same. You can see my level. Got it down just below. I love it. That worked out. So that side looks good. That side looks pretty good too, honestly. I mean, a little bit, but give you a little ASMR. How about that? Yes. That feels so good to do that. I'm going to scrub it down a little bit more. Then I'm going to pop out all the buckets for the injectors. I got new ones for that. And pull off the gasket. Clean everything up a little bit. And then I'm going to tap each one of those bolt cylinders, threads, whatever you want to call them, to make sure this thing, when it goes back in, it goes in effortlessly. So, oh, one last tip. The vacuum line with the banjo bolt in the very back there, make sure you don't lose the washers, or you're going to end up going to the store and getting more. Fortunately, I didn't do that this time. So the fun part now is to get, can't speak, that looking pretty, which is probably a 3-hour job. That's probably an extra hour, hour and a half. All that and all of this back in this car to make it make sense. So here we go. So you'll like this part of the air passage, right? So this channel is supposed to be opened up. That is all carbon. It's just completely decimated, packed full of carbon. No air was getting down this passage whatsoever. All that, ugh. That's crazy. I'll be getting another vacuum in here soon. Look at all that pour out. Ugh, terrible. I have to say, this is worse than my Fiero. Ugh, man, this is so satisfying. Look at all that, packed. Well, anyway, had to show you that. Yummy. Phase 1 on the intake is kind of complete. We're going to take some brake clean and some brushes to this thing here in a minute and make that look a little bit better. All of those have been chased with some dye. Threads look great now. That, I'm going to put a little bit of color on that. And I think I'm going to do that tomorrow. Those, I don't have a wire wheel here where I am right now, but I'll take those back home and we'll get that sorted out as well. And those bolts are all going to get a lick of paint too. So, kind of the interim progress update. Hey guys, so today I'm gonna get to using an ultrasonic cleaner for the first time. I've never used one before. I've always done things the hard way, apparently. Everything people are telling me, or it's the best way to do everything when it comes to the small parts, greasy bits, injectors specifically. People tell me that it works really well. I'm gonna try some spark plugs. Well, let me just show you what I got on my table. So here's my setup for today. I am gonna use the cheapo Harbor Freight one because it's the one I have access to right now. And I'm gonna do these 8 injectors, which I don't know if they're the original ones to the car. The car's got 225,000 miles on it, but they look pretty crusty. The rubber grommets are hard as a rock. The only one that I've done any work to is this one. I just ran it through the wire wheel real quick just to get some of the crud off. But the other 7 untouched. I'm going to use the cold start injector, throw that in there, run that through, and just because I want to see what they do to some spark plugs. And I'm also going to take apart my warm-up regulator, which I have some new hoses. Ugh, that is just terrible, crusty, ugh, terrible stuff. Look at that. So we'll go through the warm-up regulator, and I do have a rebuild kit for that. Let's get started. So I'm going to use the purple power. Got it all set up, and I think I'm going to start, since this thing only runs, I guess, in like 5-minute intervals or whatever. I'll find out here shortly. I'm just going to start with the injectors and the spark plugs, and while I take that apart. So we'll take all of these and just plop them in. And now we'll go on. Okay, interesting. Set. I don't know what TC means yet. We'll see what this does. It's not a big one, but it is pretty quiet, honestly. So we'll let it run, and we'll get to taking that apart. So, warm-up regulator. Probably the most underrated or underappreciated piece on the 117 engine with this Bosch, the K-Jet. A couple different variations of it. I do have 3 vacuum lines on mine. Some of them only have 2. This is an 82 380 SL. So we do have the clip here around the electrical connector we'll take apart. But to start, these 4 screws on the back, make sure you have the proper screwdriver that fits that thing wholly. If you don't, you're going to have a serious problem. I already cracked it free in the vise. So we'll take these out real quick. And there is a spring under here. It's going to be under a little bit of pressure, so we'll just keep that pinched together. Oh, and the TC for the ultrasonic, that means that's the heat cycle. So I turned it on because we want heat, right? Boy, this has got to go through the wire wheel too. Crust on there already. Ooh, look at that, already popped off. Yes. That's not terrible. Spring. We'll separate that. And there is the heart of the animal. So we'll keep all of these things organized. Please create a nice, safe place to work where you don't drop anything really precious, you know, like that, which I cut a hole in. By the way, this still beautiful. Love it. I still have to set this to the proper height, something like 0.05 or something. We'll look into that here in a little bit, but we'll get that out of the way. And there, it did 1 cycle already. So, we'll go off. Come on. Starting cycle number 2. So back to this. The double spring with a puck on the bottom. This is just held in with a very small dab of grease, which I think there's a little excessive amount in there right now. And now, oh crap, I forgot my multimeter. Well, 10mm locking nut. And again, this is going to be oriented dead center. There's a hole on the top of the plates here. You got to make sure that is dead center. So we'll snap this loose real quick. And then as soon as it broke free, it twisted everything. One nut. And a flat washer and a lock washer. All right, so that's done. Now we got to get this clamp off. I'll show you how I do that here shortly. I don't want to keep the film rolling because it's going to get boring. All right, if you can tell, I got it to slide a little bit, pretty crusty, right? And I just used the pliers on the outside of the case just to get it started. And then a little bit of a screwdriver twist and she'll come out pretty easily. So there's your cheat code, I guess, whatever you want to call it. So that's done. Come on. She's still in there pretty good. That'll go in the cleaner. Clean up around the edge just to try to get this connector out because I want to put this whole housing in the ultrasonic as well. So there it goes. Be very careful. Don't bang on it to get it through. And there. And that is your precious right there. You can actually remove this as well. I don't know if I'm going to or not. I'll clean this up and have a look at it. And then the next step is to get in here and take off these 4 tiny little screws. All right, little break in the action. Nice. Not super hot. Okay. Did a pretty decent job. Let me set this over here. And pick up one of these injectors, which still has some stuff on it. Not bad. I think it definitely needs to go another round. At least one more. Still need to get these off, but I wanted a chance to clean everything around them before I started cutting them off or whatever I had to do to get them off. But not terrible. All right, a cold start. I have no idea if this one even works yet. So that'll be fun to see. And let me see, where was my worst spark plug? It's probably this guy. Still pretty slimy feeling. You can see the color. Definitely took a lot of it off. There's still a bunch of carbon left, but it wipes right off. So we'll give everything a quick wipe down, and then I think I'm going to put it back in for another one, maybe 2. I did read like I said before, the TC is for heat, but they say only do no more than 3 iterations in 15 minutes to prevent burning this thing out. I know there's another one, the Vivor I think it is, which you can run that thing for hours and not have any concerns. Allegedly. I haven't played with it yet, but yeah, still a lot of carbon around the head, but anyway, we'll get her back in and run it through another series. Well, as usual, there's always one. I forgot to put that one in. So that's going to join the party with all of this hardware. So next thing I'm going to do, again, make sure you're using the right size screwdriver. And this is good. It is. It works. No, it doesn't. Nope. Got to get a smaller screwdriver. So there we go. This one should work. A little long, but it'll do. Yes. Son of a, okay. One loose. Make sure you get a real good bite. Two. Boy, this has been in there for a while. Three. This one is going to be a little bit of a problem child, apparently. Make sure it is square. There it goes. Wow, that was way more complicated than it needed to be. So all four are not quite loose. We'll get in here. Come on, there we go. One, two, three. The old Sesame Street reference. And the fourth one is out. Now there is an order on which these come out, and there's a little, not a pin, but like a bucket that goes in between the two. So there's the top piece. Come on, let go. Here's that little pin, which is just kind of floating around in there now. And then here is the plate, which is supposed to be just loose in there. There, should let go. And it's just a plate, a very thin piece of tin, maybe? And then there's an O-ring here, and those are the orifices that goes in and comes out of. In and return. Yeah, that thing, whew. If this was smell-o-vision, I promise you, you would be impressed. So there is a filter inside this one, I believe. So I will pop this off and that one, hopefully without damaging them. They do have crush washers on the bottom of each one. And I am not going to mess with this very much. This is the adjuster. You tap that down or push it up as necessary. And I'm gonna leave it at the factory setting. I'm not gonna tap it down or push it up. I'm just gonna leave it alone and see where we're at when I get it back in the car. I'm just trying to omit this from being a potential problem when I start this car. So, almost done. I'll get these off and we'll get this stuff in there. Top tip, as the Brits say, I would take the smaller one off first because you can't get, I'll show you. Well, when these are all the way down, like that, you can't get your box end around that stuff. So if you break the smaller one loose first, you'll be able to get your box end, which is the far safer way, to get this off all the way around this one with everything out of the way. So highly recommend doing it that way. And in there is the filter. I don't know if you can see it at all. No? Anyway, there's a little tiny screen. Yeah, a little screen in the large one in there. You want to make sure you get that clean. So the ultrasonic should take care of that as well. So I'm going to pick out this other gasket and get all this stuff in the cleaner, and we'll see how well of a job it did with the other, with the injectors. So now I was able to find some gaskets, such as the distributor gasket for the fuel, as well as the actual distributor gasket for the ignition system. Genuine parts. I found a new shop online, which I wasn't aware of. You guys are probably smarter than me on it, but RM European seems to have everything that I needed, and one shipping price instead of the game Rock Auto Plays or Parts Geek, etc., where they got to ship it from 3 different warehouses and you get charged 3 or 4 different times for shipping. So yeah, RM European, not sponsored by them, but genuine parts. It fits. And I got the other one for my distributor. So far, so good. All these little elbows came from them as well. So I'm gonna keep using those guys. So RM European. She's got some heat going. All right, come here, my little friend. So that is 3 iterations. Let's see how this stuff looks again. I think that's all I'm going to do. I think we've loosened up enough crud on the insides and on the outsides to try to get things flowing again, right? So the injector looks pretty decent. Can't complain. It even cleaned up all the gunk that was on the connectors. So that's good enough, as my kids like to tell me. I like how some of them are still brass colored and some are just pure silver, so you can tell some of these have been replaced over the years. So I'm glad I'm doing this. Get to see what was actually done, how well the car was taken care of. And again, like I've been saying, I think this car was garaged for most of the last 45 years, with the last 10 being rather substantial on its wear and tear. Yeah, this one still looks like it's an original. So I'm curious to, I want to put these back in the car just to see if they're even going to run. I can always just run a quick test on it once I get the warm-up regulator and everything else, the distributor, all back in the car. Anyway, I'm going to continue cleaning these things and making sure that they look all right. So that's as far as I'm going to break this down. I just put the spark plugs back in because the tips weren't quite white yet. Scraped off a little bit more crud. And we'll try to get those a little bit cleaner. I threw that other injector in there, so we'll give that one more iteration. So the spark plugs will have 3 iterations and the injectors will have 2. Looking at these injectors, they are 2 brass ones still. I think these have been replaced. They are all Bosch. They all say Bosch, but my concern is, I mean, the brass ones, I got 216 and I got 221. I got to do some more research into that. Plus, I'll clean these up and read what all of those are saying as well. I want to match up and see if any of the injector pulses are different. So I'll get back to you on that. My fuel distributor, like I said, I soaked it yesterday with some solvents and everything else just to make sure the innards are lubricated. The pin is working great. I'll measure that today. I'm going to put all of my fittings back on here. I actually put them in the sonic cleaner as well. Well, I'll have to do them kind of one at a time just to make sure I don't misorient them. This one has the screen in it, so I'll make sure that one goes in at a minimum. The other ones are easily seen through. There's no crust or crud in them. I just want to run them through anyway for, I guess, shits and giggles. But we'll put all this stuff in here next. Actually, I might do this next because I'm really curious to see how it just takes off regular grease and grime. So that'll be interesting. I'm giving this a good 400-second cycle, and there we go. You'll see what it looks like when it's all done. There's one iteration. Flip it over and give it a second one. I don't want to wipe it. I just want to see what this actually does to it. And that is after, what is it, 8 minutes? I think you can set this for 480 seconds, so I think that's 8 minutes. She's still steaming. But, yeah. Not overly impressed with it, honestly. I'd have to try a different machine to see if I still want to use it. I mean, it does obviously get some grime and grit off, but I think it's meant more for detailed work. Like, it may have actually done a really good job on those guys. On the inside, I don't know. And you can see it didn't get all the carbon off of this one. Most of it off of this one. This one came out really nice. This one, okay. So, all in all, I mean, it's all right. I guess it kind of works. And that's what you get with 5 minutes of brake cleaner and a wire brush. So, I don't know. Choose your poison, I guess. So I've got some of this back together already. This is really simple stuff. Quick explanation anyway. I did refresh, cleaned, and refreshed all 4 sensors on the top here. I got this still loose on the back for the vacuum line for the brakes. I got the spring back on for the throttle body. Very solid. I got these 4 bolts torqued down to about 16 foot-pound. And all of the O-rings are new and in really good condition. Everything felt super snug and tight. Both sides look great. I tentatively put my my cold start injector on there just so I start not losing things, because I'm getting to the point where things are scattered to all 4 corners of the garage. So that was a quick update on this. This isn't going to go back in yet because I still want to go through and clean out the lines, make sure I have good flow through the lines, which gets me back to draining the fuel tanks. Apparently, it may be a model difference between the 450 and the 380, but I've had to drain, as soon as I took the end nut off, that started flowing fuel, all the fuel from the tank. That is my second 5-gallon jug plus another gallon jug that I filled up. Yeah, I had 11 gallons in this thing apparently. Still smelled great, no issues with that gas. This one, definitely an issue with it. When I took everything off on the other side, this poor thing did not drain anything out. As you can see underneath here still. I do have the pump out of it, obviously, but when I took the end off of this one, it just stopped. If there's gas in this tank, it's dripping a little bit, but I think this line going up to the bottom of the tank is plugged. So I'm waiting on my socket to get here. I ordered a socket off of eBay for my my sending unit. and I'm gonna have a look inside the tank to see what it actually looks like in the tank. And that sits right there. It's just gonna make it a lot easier because it's recessed underneath this shelf. It's a pain in the butt to get big pliers in there, so I just ordered one. So that's where we're at. That's gonna wrap it up for me today. Yeah, I should get that tool today. I'll get the sending unit out, look inside the tank, and then we're gonna get the tank out of this car, blow the lines out, make sure all the rest of the lines are good. We're gonna recondition and rebuild the power steering, but the fuel pump and that whole assembly, go through that, make sure that is ready to go. And I want to pull the strainer out of this thing also on the bottom of the fuel tank. Make sure that is cleaned out and good to go as well. Then we're going to do some rust cleaning in that tank. It's looking pretty bad, so we'll do some before and afters on that. Anyway, I'm Derek. This is 4 in Tune. Thanks for watching. Next time, we'll be putting the engine back together and getting that fuel tank back in the car.